Clark.
My debut 1990 September, Bristol City away, to get that opportunity, what thousands of Geordies only dream of.
Lee Clark 1-0.
Williams.
My first goal for Sunderland away at Leicester was a left foot volley. I didn't realise my left foot was for kicking the ball with it as well. I thought it was just for standing it.
Williams for Sunderland.
Hignett.
Playing against Chelsea and to score the first goal there is something that still lives with me now, and it's what most people will talk to me about.
Higgy with the ball. Go on, Higgy. You beauty. You Scouser Teesside beauty.
Worshipped every weekend. It's the three legends, banter and rivalry across the northeast. On the Toon, the Cat, the Red.
Oh, fellas, you're at it again. How are you all? All right, Dave.
Very well, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, bit jet lag, mate.
Bit jet lag, not the partying, man. Just jet lag.
Yeah, just jet lag, mate. Definitely not partying.
Okay. Lee, I'm assuming you're firmly ensconced at home.
Yes, I am.
Good man.
Yes.
Good man. But Higgy could be anywhere. You know, we've had him in car parks. We've had him with rats on his bonnet. Where are you today, pal?
I am in a car park. I'm doing the round. I'm doing a tour of Britain. So this time I'm in.
Higgy, you're going to get
Poland.
yourself some kind of dodgy reputation, mate.
Well, I think the police have already got my number plate, so I'm all right.
It is the.
But I'm in Cologne. I'm in Cologne waiting because I'm doing something in Blackburn tonight, so I've just parked up in Cologne. Remember Cologne Dynamos?
I do. I actually won 200 quid in McDonald's in Cologne. They were running the Monopoly thing.
In McDonald's?
Yeah, they were doing the Monopoly thing. And I peeled my little Monopoly sticker off and it said, "Congratulations, you've won 200 quid. I thought they were messing me about, but went inside and it's like, oh yeah, great. Here's the money. So find McDonald's again, you might get a payday.
Luckier than I am.
It's the only thing I've ever won. Anyway, fellas, it's been an interesting week of footy. Obviously, Newcastle back in the Champions League. We've had the Tonali situation finally come to a head, so we know what's happening. Boro winning. I don't think I better mention Sunderland, Daz.
Mate, I watched the game as well, and I thought it was a good game, and I think it's credit to the lads when the Leicester fans are putting on social media. It's probably the best team that's been to Leicester this season. So I think that's credit to them, but obviously, a disappointing result at the end of the day.
They've hit a brick wall, Daz, haven't they? That's 3 now they've lost in the spin, and you can see what difference it makes. Middlesbrough win 3, and you can see the change in the table.
Yeah, this is the thing, mate, and it's a difficult one, mate, because we seem to be getting opportunities, getting chances, but we're just not sticking them away. Where as early part of the season, we were banging them in left, right, and centre. But I think for me, Higgy, it's a very similar to last season. I think the both clubs have started exactly the same. Sunderland started on a high last year. We're up and around the playoffs. Middlesbrough obviously started at the bottom, and you kind of both switched again. And it's very similar, structure to last season and how it went. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we get out of this little rut we're in at the moment.
Yeah, you've played some top teams though, haven't you? I mean, Leicester, for me, are the one team in the Championship who I think are just going to go and run away with it. I can't see any teams really challenging them to go up. Ipswich have done well and started really well, but I think they'll be up there as well, but not like Leicester. Leicester are consistently good, aren't they?
They are consistent, mate. And listen, I'm not saying, obviously, I know a lot of people said, we should have got to point out the game, but, Leicester had some great chances as well. But I just think, Sunderland, they did have some good chances towards the end of the game, and probably, in all honesty, maybe he's dominated a little bit more in the second half, with chances wise, and there's those opportunities. We need to start hitting the back of the net because they can be costly, and as we've seen, there's been a drop in form. Well, not drop in form, I would say drop in the table from results purposes, but we're looking to bounce back on Saturday against Norwich.
I think it's when you look at Leicester lads, you just look at the strength they've got as well, what they can bring off the bench and stuff like that. Got experienced top players for Championship level, haven't they? So that'll count for a lot. I mean, we all know we've been in that league. It's just relentless, isn't it? It's just Saturday, Tuesday, and as you guys have just mentioned, you get those run of fixtures where you come up against maybe like in 3 or 4 games you've got one where you're looking, well, we can get 3 points, but it doesn't really happen, and then you start hitting the big boys like the informed teams like the Leicesters, and before you know it, like you said there, you've lost 3 on the bounce, and then you're trying to get out that little mini slump. So
yeah,
I think with Leicester, it's just the strength they have. That's the experience. They kept some really big players from the relegation, but also they spent a lot of money, but they've spent it very wisely, and players who've experienced Premier League, etc. Your Harry Winks and that of this world. So it was always going to be tough, but it's like you said, Daz. It's about bouncing back against a team who are not in a good run of form themselves, and were expected to be right in amongst it, weren't they? In Norwich, they're not in a great run of form at this moment.
No, they're struggling.
No, exactly.
I was at the game on Tuesday and watched Norwich firsthand, so I know what you're coming up against. I mean, they've got a couple of really good players. Daz, Jonathan Rowe plays up front for them. Played on the right, drifting in. He was a real handful all night, and you can see he's got real quality. He scored a brilliant goal. Yeah. But the Norwich fans were, they were set against their team. As soon as something went against them, they just turned. So I just think if Sunderland start well, and they're at home as well, and get in front, I can't see that Norwich team coming back. I just think they're low in confidence now.
And this is the importance, mate, of starting well. Do you know what I mean? The need, especially at home as well, because a lot of teams know if you go to Sunderland, if you keep them quiet for 20, 25 minutes, the crowds start to get a little bit edgy. Crowds start to get on top of them, and then you're expecting then your players to stand up. But we've got a lot of young players, and I think Clarky's touched on it there. We haven't got the strength and depth in the squad at this moment in time, and we've had a few injuries over the past few months. Which have started to creep in, and I think it's affected them even more. But the big thing for me is, I know, and listen, Tony obviously deals with the players on a daily basis, but I just feel like Rusand's, he's there on the bench. There was a big hype about getting him, initially in the transfer window, and we just haven't really seen anything of him. He's had he's 5 or 10 minutes here and there, but Tony's saying he's not ready. But how's he going to be ready? If he's not getting a bit more game time and a bit more opportunities.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But listen, I fancy Sunderland. I think they'll do Norwich, because I haven't seen them firsthand. Norwich, I think they're fragile. I think that they look shaky at the back, and like I said, when things go against them, Daz, they go all over the place, and they don't just, when they let goals in, they let them in batches. They don't just let one in and then play the game. They seem to have let them in like batches of goals, which must be a worry for their manager.
Yeah, it must be right. They're a different Norwich, aren't they, from going back over the years, because Norwich used to be a nice solid outfit, but obviously could score plenty of goals as well. And that's they seem to be on obviously a very very deep incline at the moment. Decline. Sorry, incline. I'm all over the shop here with this jet lag. But yeah, for me, it's we've had Dak out again. We did speak about him during when we got him at the start of the season. How long would we have him for? It was his injuries returning. They have crept back in a little bit for him, which is disappointing, because for me, he's a good 10. He plays good in that hole, and he's a good link up man. We've had Bellingham up there, but it's probably not Bellingham's best position. So I think we've chopped and changed as much as we can up top. And we've got a couple of strikers there on the bench. Who maybe should get a bit more game time, and let's see what they're like.
Let's see. Interesting one tomorrow.
Would it be, how much of a problem would it be, Daz, if they didn't? Let's say they didn't perform and they did lose. It's another defeat on the bounce. Would it be a problem, or is it far too early in the season?
I still think it's early. I mean, if not looking at Middlesbrough's situation early on, we talked about Middlesbrough when they had a struggle to start the season, and they were patient with the manager and stuck by him, and and obviously they've turned their fortunes around, and I think the same goes for Tony. He's working, like I say, with a very thin squad at the moment. He's done extremely well over the past couple of years with us, and I don't foresee there being a major panic. But what we don't want to be doing is falling away you know, and then having you know, a lot of ground to make up, because you know the league at this moment in time is still tight. You know, a couple of wins and you know you're back in there and you're fighting for a playoff spot. You know, like Higgy said, you know, I think you know Leicester will run away with the league, and then you know your second spot's open, obviously along with your playoff places. For me, because I can't see Leicester, you know, falling away, because you know they've got a decent gap at the moment anyway.
Well, they are a decent team. They are running away with it, aren't they? But I mean, let's stay in the Championship.
They are, Dave. But Leicester are running away with it. But like Clarky says, and Daz just said, they've got all the quality. You know, they've kept players who've got Premier League experience, and their squad could probably cope with injuries. That's my worry with Middlesbrough at the minute is injuries. So they've been on this fabulous run. 7 games they've won, 6 of them in the league. But the injuries are starting to bite now. So, I mean, even the other night, you know, they were without McGree, Darren Lenihan, Marcus Foss, Latty Lath, Lucas Engel and Hayden Hackney got injured in the game. Tommy Smith's out for the season with a ruptured Achilles. So there's 6 or 7 players. Now, you need some squad to be able to cope with that. The confidence thing's obviously taking them a little bit, because I watched Middlesbrough the other night, and listen, they weren't spectacular, and I'm sure they'll play better, but they were solid, and that's what they were. They were solid. Everyone worked really hard for each other. They showed a little bit of quality for the 2 goals that they scored. They could have scored more, but they could have conceded more as well. Norwich had a few chances, and I think the league's, that's typical of the league. You know, I think if you can be solid and consistent, then you'll do all right. I mean, Middlesbrough were bottom of the table before they've won these 6 games on the spin, and you've seen them. They're joint in the playoffs now. And Sunderland are below them, which it's incredible, really. Because if you'd looked at the 2 seasons, you'd say, well, Sunderland have had a brilliant start to the season, and you look at Middlesbrough's start, and you'll think, well, Middlesbrough have had a poor start to the season. But it's turned around now in the space of 6 games. And that's how tight this league is, Dave. It's so tight that if you can put a run of games together, 4 or 5 games, you can get yourself right in amongst it. And that's for anyone, probably going down to about 17th place. Teams can still get in there.
We spoke earlier on in the season, Iggy, about like clean sheets. You know, massive. I mean, we know we've conceded the goal against Leicester. Now, for me, it's a bit of a poor goal to concede. You know, he shouldn't have shouldn't be getting that space, you know, to head it in. I know Pat has kept us in the game a bit, you know, with a few great saves, but then, you know, Sunderland have had opportunities, mate. But you know, clean sheets are fantastic. Obviously, you know, at least get you a point, but you know, we need to be a bit ruthless at the other end as well, and that's where we're lacking at the moment. And I think, you know, as much as we play really well, we move the ball extremely well, it's that final third where we're just struggling at this moment.
Yeah, goal scorers are worth the weight in gold, aren't they? Everyone's trying to get them, particularly down in the Championship. And I think, you know, Norwich, they do score plenty of goals, or have scored plenty of goals, but they just can't keep clean sheets. They don't seem to be able to keep clean sheets, and they let so many goals in, like daft goals. I think they're the 3rd worst defence in the league. But one of the top scorers in the league, which is, you know, that just shows you how up and down they are. It's crazy.
Totally.
I mean, Norwich were fancied, weren't they? What can happen to a team, fellas? I mean, you've all been there. You've pulled the shirts on. You've put the boots on. You've gone out there to play with your teammates. What can happen to derail you when, you know, Boro were fancied for 7 games? They got 1 point. They couldn't buy a win. What is it? Is it setup?
It's preparation.
Is
mentality.
It just mentality. That's where I was going.
I think it's mentality, Dave. I think it's too easy to say, the setup or the manager's tactics. I mean, we've all been in teams that have gone on unbelievable winning runs, and we've been in sometimes those teams that have had difficult periods. And when you're in those winning runs, it's just like you don't want the training, you want the relentless games, you want this Saturday, you choose this Saturday because you know you're on a good run of form. Everyone's playing with confidence. Defenders are, you know, knowing that they've got a good chance of keeping a clean sheet, and if they do that, they know the attacking players just need that one opportunity to get you the victory, and vice versa. The attackers know that if they, you know, they take their chances much easier, and they know that the team's defending well, so there's a good chance of winning. But it's like on the other hand, when you're in it, never had it so much so as a player, but I've obviously been in situations as a manager where you're just thinking, where's the next win coming from? What you're going to have to do? It's nothing's changed from previously when we're doing well. So I think
it changes so quickly as well, Clarky, doesn't it?
It does, Higgy. It is. It's amazing how quickly it changes, And I've even seen momentum swing in games where first half, especially when I was being a manager or a coach, and team had been unbelievable first half, and then second half had just been complete opposite, and you're thinking, well, that's in one game where it's changed a little bit, but certainly I think, like you said, and we've always said this since the start of the show, the start of the season, it's trying to get that win after a horrible run. It's any kind of win they take, because it doesn't really matter how you win it. The players take a lot of belief, and it's like a little bit of a weight off their shoulder. Then the next game, they start showing a little bit glimpses of their natural ability. Whereas when you're not winning games, players are frightened to show their true potential in case they make a mistake and that they know the team's on a little bit of a losing run. Whereas when you're winning, players will take risks. Attacking players will, maybe try and take that extra touch or try and take that extra player on. And if it doesn't come off, it's not a problem because the team's going to win in anyway. But if you do that and you don't get that result and you lose, you think the finger's going to be pointed at you. So both individually and collectively, I just think it's the mentality. It's when you're winning, it's, you think, well, this is just going to continue. But when you're losing, you're sometimes thinking, wow, how we're going to win? You're looking at your fixtures and thinking, well, that's a tough one. Wow, that's an even tougher one. And I think just Sunderland, as the lads have said, they've got to use this tomorrow, being at home, crowd with them. Quick start, as Daz has mentioned, and with Norwich being a little bit fragile, as Higgy said, watching them in midweek against the Boro. That could count in their favour, and then you get back on a roll again. Look at Boro. Was it Higgy 6 wins on the bounce now?
Well, they've won 7 on the bounce, but one of them was a cup game at Bradford. But it's
still
6 in
the same part of the run, in it 7. So
yeah,
brilliant.
And I'll tell you what was important about that, Clark. You just mentioned it there about it doesn't matter how you get your first win, you get it. When Boro did, they had a cup game against Bradford, and he could have rested a load because it was a cup game, and he didn't. He wanted to go and get another win again, and I thought that was massive for the football club.
Totally
then suddenly
agree.
It's 2 wins, and then you go into the next one, and your tails are up, like you've said. Take Birmingham, for example. We mentioned Birmingham last week about what a strange thing it was. They're obviously doing it for the profile of the club and whatever. John Eustace was doing a great job. They started the season well. They're in a playoff spot. Rooney's took over, under pressure straight away. They've lost the first 2 against Boro and Hull. And now they're under immense pressure, and I bet you their players don't know where to turn now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, that was one of my questions about the Boro and Birmingham game last week and what you thought of them, and because like we said beforehand, we thought it was a very harsh decision, and just the comments that were coming out the club on the appointment of Wayne Rooney saying, we wanted to go down a different approach. We wanted the team to play without fear. I mean, we've all played the game. I'm not sure what that type of statement means. Are we just going to play like total football, and if we lose, it doesn't really matter because we're not worrying about what we're doing or whatever? Because I think John had them playing decent football, but they were winning as well, So
well, listen,
I just wondered what your opinion was when you obviously the game.
I thought they were all right. Listen, they were all right against Boro, Clarky. I only seen the highlights and obviously seen the goal, but they were okay, and that's it. I wouldn't say they were any better than that. They played some good stuff at times. Other bits, you think, Boro, to be fair, were solid, and Boro were good value for the win in the end. I know it was a late one, but they deserved it. I thought Boro deserved the win. Birmingham, for me, if you're on about not playing with fear, then you wouldn't be scared playing for John Eustace, would you? You'd be more scared playing for Wayne Rooney than you would for John Eustace. Straight away.
That's the thing. I'm not sure when they've used the word fear what the meaning from it, or the meaning the manager's going to let us play at all costs. He's going to let us play out from the back. If we make a mistake in our own defending third and it costs us a goal, he still wants us to do the same thing. If it ends up costing us the result, he's going to just keep improving. But because if it does mean that, well, it's a little bit hypocritical, because in the next sentence it was like Wayne knows the objective, and that's to get to the Premier League, and that's to get promoted. So I'm thinking, well, it's as well. We've all taken over clubs at different times of the season. And when you've been working for one manager, for a new manager to come in with a completely different philosophy, but in a team that's winning, that's the difference. He's come into a team that's winning, but he also stated he wanted the team to play in a different way. He didn't come in and say, I want to continue the good work John Eustace has done. He's like, me and my staff want to change things. We want to change the way the players go about their business. So he's come out and said that himself. And so he's basically wanting to change things during this course of the season.
Yeah.
We've talked about how relentless the league is, so how often do you get them on the training pitch to do that? And two, is a group of players capable of doing that in any way? Because he hasn't got that summer window where he can go and get the players that he believes can take out his instructions in the way he wants to play. So they've lost the first 2 games. So listen, we're talking about how it changes and what happened with Boro, so it can easily happen for Birmingham. But I think it's just it's created a little bit of an issue. And the thing that they haven't scored either.
It takes time, doesn't it, Clarky? You know, like you've said there, you know, it's getting on the training pitch, and you know, like you said, with the games weekend and midweek, it's, you know, it is relentless, and you know, it's what is a couple of games in, you know, potentially you could change it around. You know, there's no reason why you couldn't.
But it's like what I'm saying is, usually when you get a job in October in the Championship, it's because the team are down the bottom and they're not playing particularly well and they're not getting results. So you can come out and say, right, well, I've got to change a few things. You know, maybe it's the formation, it's not suiting the players we've got, etc., or whatever. Yeah. But when you were in the playoffs, when you took over, they've just won the last 2 games under the previous manager, and then the players are, like we've just been talking about, mentality. The players will be really confident. They'll be thinking, oh, we're on a good run. Oh, bang, the manager's gone. Now we've got a new manager, and then the messages are completely different. Do you know what I mean?
Well, here's one for you. How long do you stick with wanting to change it if when you get there after a couple of weeks, I mean, and you can, after a couple of weeks, you know whether the players that you've got are capable of doing what you want them to do? How long do you stick with trying to change stuff and it getting worse and worse? Or do you be pragmatic and say, well, look, I can't play like that until I've got my own players in who I know can do it?
Exactly, Higgy, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I've got a perfect example, my big pal, and obviously ex-Sunderland manager, Chris Coleman. When Chris took over from the late, great Gary Speed as Wales manager, he tried to just let things run like they were, because Speedo had started things and he had some great results. But it was Chris not being himself, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And he had a few iffy results in his first 4 or 5 games. And I think it come to the crunch where he thought, if I'm going to fail, I've got to fail on my own terms. I've got to fail being myself. And obviously things turned around and they had that great run where they got to a major competition and then done brilliant there and put Chris back on the managerial map as it is, you know. I think personally he could have been a great Sunderland manager. He just took over at the wrong time. But that's a different story. But I'm saying about the Wayne thing, and I know what the Birmingham fans are like. They're loyal to people who do well for them, and I know there was a lot of them. All right, Wayne's a huge name, mega name. We're not getting away from that. But I don't think in terms of what the Birmingham fans were looking for and were after, they wanted someone like a Wayne. They wanted to continue with John, who's a Brummie lad, you know, and done all the right things and worked really hard for those fans. It can be a tough old place to work, because I don't know if you remember playing there, but the tunnel's right in the corner. When you've got to go as a manager, you come out that corner and you're going towards the dugout, and it's the end where that paddock area where there's some tough people in there. I've had a bit of dogs abuse. I've had a bit of dogs abuse walking up and down there.
That's where he had it, Clarky, because it was at the end of the game. He's walking off, obviously him and his staff at the end of the game, and that's where it was coming from. He's going towards the tunnel. He's just walking there, and that's where he got absolutely leathered.
Oh, mate,
and you could hear everything. It was brutal.
Ruthless.
Yeah, it was brutal.
And I don't think there's any
watch after 2 games.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think there's any honeymoon period for him because of the way it's been done. And that's not Wayne's fault, by the way. That's not,
it's not.
You know, Wayne's been offered a chance to manage a great club, which if they got in the Premier League, you know, could go on to big and better things. But but he's got to understand. Whoa, he's took a big risk, because if it doesn't happen at Birmingham, then you're thinking, where's it next for him? Do you know what I mean? And especially when they're coming out with statements like, we've appointed him to get us to the Premier League. That's one very strong statement when you consider how tough the Championship is. You've just mentioned about it, no fixtures easy. You cannot say that's a given, even though Leicester have started strongly. And, with each game that they lose, they come further adrift from the top two, Even me dog's agreeing.
I know.
Totally agrees with you, mate.
Obviously talking sense, or is it feeding time? What do you make? What do you make, lads, about what Cody Drammer's come out and said? The youngster who's on loan there. He's come out publicly and said the lads just can't play the way Wayne wants them to. I mean, surely that's not going to do any help whatsoever in the minds of the fans, is it?
Well,
not really, mate.
Or Wayne.
Not when you think, you play. Yeah, exactly. Not when you the fans will be thinking, obviously, the players are not good enough. The players are going to be thinking the players are not good enough, and obviously, clearly, Wayne thinks the players are not good enough. So it's I don't know. It's a bit of a down statement, isn't it, for everybody, really?
I think what they've done is put the club in turmoil, haven't they?
Well, pretty much, because
they've caused unnecessary unrest for me.
Yeah.
Aye. Yeah, because surely as a player and as obviously fans, you want your manager to believe in the players, and clearly, obviously, he doesn't.
I mean, for a lone player to come out and say that's pretty brave, isn't it? Because I think if a lone player had done that when I was there, I think he might be back at his club the next week. I
was going to ask you two. I was going to ask you two, as ex-managers, how would you deal with it?
Well, I think you'd get him in and ask him what he meant by the comment, and then if you ain't satisfied with the answer, then he'd be back to his parent club, and I'd be asking for a refund as well, probably.
I'm quite sure.
That's the difference in the
game. His teammates didn't agree, though.
That's probably the difference in the game now, though, as well, lads. Players aren't frightened to come out in the public domain, and that was an unwritten rule for us. We've done it behind closed doors. You are classed as a little bit of a problem player or a little bit of a baby, really, if you went running to the media and all that, if something wasn't right. You know what I mean? Get it sorted where
by the way, though,
in the manager's office.
That goes both ways. So if a player's going to come out and say this about we can't play the way he's trying to make us play, then the manager can come out and go, do you know what, he's rubbish. Or geez, and you know what players are like, Clarky? If you say anything derogatory about a player in the media, then they're right on you. And they're like, what, why did you say that? Or what? Do you know what I mean? They take offence to it.
Then that horrible cliche comes out. Oh, he's lost the dressing room.
Yeah, he's lost the dressing room. It's mental, isn't it? I mean, that bugs me. That one that bugs me, he's lost the dressing room. And the other one is he's got no plan B. That bugs me as well.
Yeah, of course. Aye. As if because you don't practice anything.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? I mean, what people really mean is he hasn't put his goalkeeper as a centre forward. There you go. There's no plan B.
Yeah.
But I bet you've made about 20 tweaks in the game that nobody's noticed. And then at the end of it, because you've lost, it's he's got no plan B. Whereas if it turned it round, they'd be like, he was a tactical genius. He just stuck to his plans, or he stuck to his guns and didn't wander away from. That's what's happening with Michael Carrick at the minute. You know, people were questioning him before this run. And to be fair, Middlesbrough looked awful. You know, I seen the game at Sheffield Wednesday comes to mind, where they were absolutely awful. But now they've been on this run and they've got these results. Suddenly it's, Michael always believed in the players and we should trust Michael and blah, blah, blah. And he does. He sees the players every day in training. He knows how he wants to play. And sometimes as a manager, you've got to stick to that. It's pointless. Just because you haven't won in 2 or 3 weeks of changing your whole philosophy and going against something else. You've got to stick to what you believe. And that's what he's done. But now everyone's saying, well, I'm glad he has stuck to it. Whereas before they were like, well, he's got to change it. Surely, we haven't won in this long. And why hasn't he changed the formation? Or why hasn't he? He hasn't changed it because he believes in the way he's playing.
No, totally agree with you, pal.
Well, it's
just a tough one.
It's not going to help, is it? It's not going to help with the youngster coming out and saying it. But look, we've still got to talk Boro. We've still got to talk Newcastle. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back, the three legends across the northeast, after this.
It's the three legends across the northeast. Clark, legend. Williams, legend. Ignat, legend. WhatsApp us, call or send a voice message. Banter at its best. 033 00 43 2002.
Right across the northeast, the Tune, the Cat and the Red.
Oh yes, the lads are back. It is the three legends right across the northeast on the Cat, the Red and the Tune. You're in the Championship, fellas. Let's stay there for the moment. Higgy, Boro, the only team in the northeast to win.
Well, they can't stop winning, can they? Absolutely can't stop winning. They've got that lovely knack now, Dave, of going out, knowing exactly what each other are going to do, and playing with confidence and a freedom. And I think there's still a bit more to come from them. You know, like I say, they missed a load of injuries. I'm still not convinced, but I'm really pleased, if that makes sense. You know, from where they were to where they are now is night and day. They're full of confidence. I do still think they need a centre forward. Don't get me wrong. I think Josh Coburn's done a fabulous job up there, and the runs coincided with him coming into the team. Lati Lath has scored his goals, although he missed the Norwich game the other night. But they're just playing with a real assuredness of, I know my job. And Paddy McNair and Dale Fry, while Lenahan's been out, have been really, really good together. You know, they almost kept a clean sheet the other night from a brilliant goal from Jonathan Rowe, which should never have went in, but it was a fabulous strike, and you can't take anything away from him. But they're just so confident. They just know their jobs. They're resolute in defence. They've got a really good shape about them. They're working really hard for each other, and it seems to be a really happy camp and a confident camp, and that can take you places when you've got a camp that's all together, all working for the same thing. There doesn't seem to be any cliques or anything around the camp. They just all seem to be good lads, enjoying what they're doing, working for each other and working hard, and they're getting results, and that makes a massive difference. When you start winning games, it doesn't take long, and when you can see the progress that they've made from being bottom to now being just outside a playoff spot but on the same points as them, that must give them unbelievable confidence as well, knowing that, you know what, if we win another one or if we win another two, we're going to be in the playoffs. And if we can keep the form up as long as we can, we're going to create a little gap. But we've all said it, it's really hard looking forward, because the Championship has a habit of biting you on the backside. And if you look too far ahead, before you know it, you've lost 2 or 3. And then you're back to square one again. So whilst I hope they don't, my only concern at the moment is, like I've mentioned before, is the injuries. They've got a few injuries piling up now. Not sure whether Hackney might make the weekend, or whether Engel might make the weekend. And I have to give a special mention to Engel, by the way, who's coming for a bit of stick in his first few games. But the last 2 games, he's been absolutely brilliant, finding his feet in the Championship and proving a few people wrong, which is great to see. And Sam Greenwood as well. You know, he's a creative player, and he's started to get an eye for goal now. Started off at Sunderland scoring the goal, and then he got another good goal at Norwich, really well worked. Josh Coburn with the assist. And then Sammy Silveira comes on and makes a nice finish. And Isaiah Jones looks to be back to near his best as well, which is great to see, because he's had a period of time where he hasn't looked himself, and he's been in and out of the team for it. But now, you know, he's firmly back to playing with a bit of confidence, being really positive, and looks back to his old self, which is great to see.
That's been a brilliant turnaround, Higgy, to be fair. They're in the playoff positions now from where they were. You know, we were talking, weren't we, about... I remember you saying you find it difficult to see where the next win's coming from, and then we went down the process of, if it had been another owner except Steve Gibson, Michael might have been feeling a little bit of pressure, but I think he's showing it once again. He's prepared to give people a bit of time, his managers, and it's paid dividends. And you know, they can go on again tomorrow with. Is it a home game against Stoke tomorrow?
Yeah. So I mean Stoke always seem to get into a bit of form when they start to play Middlesbrough. I think they had the win against Sunderland. I think they won the other night as well, didn't they?
Yeah, did they beat Leeds?
Yeah, they beat Leeds, but it's Bamford missed a pen, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, mate. Yeah.
But listen, they're one of them teams
that I think.
Yeah, I mean they're one of them teams, aren't they? That you don't know. They're hot and cold. They can go either way. They can turn up and they can play really poorly, or they can be a real handful, and that's just the way it is. And to be fair, that's the way the Championship is, isn't it? You could come across any team on the day, and they're either up for it and look good and look a decent side, and then a different weekend they can look like the worst team you've seen in the league. It's just it's such a close league and an up and down league. That's why we talk about consistency so much, because if you can be consistent, you've got every chance of getting promoted.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Jones' turning point, he was probably the Sunderland game, wasn't it? I think.
And it done him a favour, didn't it? Because in that game he had loads of space because of the 10 men. Yeah, and it just shows you, if you get a bit of confidence from something, how it can then propel you and take you on. And listen, sometimes as a player, you forget when you've been in a real poor run of form, you forget what you were doing well when you were in a good run of form. And I think he just got to a point where he forgot why everyone was talking about him. And it was because he was so positive, really positive. He didn't look to come backwards. Every time he got the ball, he was attacking fullbacks. He was looking forward. He was playing forward. And that's what made him really good to watch. And then he went away from that and started being a little bit negative, didn't really go at people, playing backwards and square too much. And I think that took away from his game. But he looks near his best now. I'd like to see him score more goals. I think he's got that in him, and he should have it in him. And I'd like to see him get double figures every season, if I'm honest. For a wide player with his ability and everything he's got, he should be looking to score more goals. But at the moment he's doing a great job, and not only going forward but defensively. He puts in a real shift as well. He doesn't hide from the defensive work. He's really diligent with his defending, which is it's great to see. But that's coincided with a few of them, Daz. So they've all sort of clicked into gear. And they've all done it sort of at once, whereas it's unusual. Normally you get one player who comes to form, someone loses form. But it just seems that all the Middlesbrough players have just hit a bit of form at the same time, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Totally, mate.
See, we're done with Middlesbrough now. That was easy.
That was easy.
They're brilliant.
You've been waiting all week. You to wax lyrical.
They're in the playoffs now. Soon they'll be breathing down Ipswich's neck. And then I'll have nothing to say. I'll just have to.
I've got to ask you one thing. Michael Carrick he made a very interesting comment in his press conference yesterday. He was asked about, is it just all about the playoffs now? Because Leicester have run away with it. Ipswich are on their coattails. There's a big gap opening up to third spot. And he turned around. This is what he had to say. He's saying, I haven't got a clue where we are in the league table. This is him here.
I don't know where we are in the league, to be honest with you. I've not looked at it. I'm not really interested at this stage. The playoffs are in May, so it's about winning games, accumulating points, as many as you can. We can't control Leicester or the Ipswich or whoever's above us at this moment in time until we play them, really. So it's wasted time and energy, if you like, with what's coming next for me. It's planning ahead this, obviously, Tuesday, Saturday, and planning ahead like that. That's what matters. Keep picking up as many points as we can, and then at some stage during the season we can assess where we are.
I've got to ask you, does he genuinely not know where the team is in the table? Can you be in that position, Clarky, Higgy? You've both managed teams.
I bet you he knew when they were bottom. So you can bet your life he's looked at the table. He'll know where they are, and he'll know how many points they've got. That's for sure. He's not. As a manager, you live everything. So you want to know everything that's going on. You want to know where your players are, who's injured, who isn't injured, what you've got coming up, what block of games you've got, what you're going to do in training, where you are in the league. You would look at blocks of games, or I did anyway. Sometimes you'd do blocks of 4, sometimes it'd be blocks of 6. But you'd say, right, out of these next 4, we want X amount of points, and if we do, it should take us here, and then you'll reevaluate. But you'll have an idea of where he is in the league. Because
he's just not getting carried away, is he? That's the thing. He's just
that's
not
what he doesn't want to do.
He doesn't want anybody to get carried away.
Yeah, and you can't in the Championship, but he'll certainly
exactly does.
He's trying to focus on that one. Do you know what I mean? He's trying to focus so everyone doesn't get carried away. I think, we're 7 unbeaten, blah blah. We're
focused on the next game and not worry about 100%. Where they are on the table.
100%, mate. And do you know what? He's really clever in the way he does things. I'll be, a couple of things that I've read and seen about him and the way he goes about himself. He is quite clever in the way he does things.
But he shields his players from a lot.
When the results weren't going,
like Norman Collier there, Clarky.
I'm okay.
He's too young to remember Norman Collier.
Some people say that's better. Higgy.
Yeah. I've just showed me age there. I'm going to have to find someone else who does that.
I'm 51 today, guys.
He's definitely Norman Collier.
Oh, it's his birthday today.
Is it really?
Oh, happy birthday, mate.
Happy birthday, pal.
Tell you what, Clarky, do us a favour. Just dial back in, mate. That's all we're going to ask. See if we can get a better connection for you, because we all want to wish you a happy birthday. Just moving on to Newcastle then, fellas, and we need, obviously, Clarky to give us his views on Newcastle, but defeat in the Champions League, Daz, how much will that be? You know, it's obviously a disappointment. How much could that impact their Premier League performances?
I don't think it will, mate, in all honesty. I think, Dortmund are a good side. We know that. I think, Dortmund have had a bit more time to maybe look at Newcastle.
Yeah, you're there.
You're back in, Clark.
He's in.
I think we've got a problem with his line. Sorry, Daz, you were saying?
Yeah, I don't think it will affect the season,
when you get to this age.
He just keeps appearing, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
You underestimate the sneakiness. I don't think it'll affect the ongoing games, to be quite honest. I think, Dortmund have had a little bit of time to look at Newcastle. Like I said in previous weeks, Newcastle are new to the Champions League, and I think, that's a surprise to some teams. And I think Dortmund went about the job really well, to be quite honest. And, for me, I don't think it'll have a knock-on effect.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Daz. I think they've had a great win against Crystal Palace. I think the Dortmund game will knock their confidence for the Champions League, because if they win that one, they're in a driving seat, aren't they? But now they've probably got to win. They've got to beat AC Milan at home and then beat one of them two away from home. To qualify. Yeah. That's probably where we are with that, which will be a tough ask, but it's not beyond them, that's for sure, with what we've seen already.
No, definitely not, mate.
Yeah, but I think it will knock the confidence in the Champions League. But the league, I don't think it'll have an effect. They've scored 4 goals against Crystal Palace. Things are all going well in the league. They've had 1 or 2 injuries, and obviously the Tonali situation, what they'll have to deal with. The only issue that you could have with that Tonali one is that it becomes messy and ugly, and the whole season becomes about Tonali, Newcastle, and AC Milan. And I'd hate that to happen, because Eddie's he's done brilliant, Eddie, and then to try and deal with all that politics would be a real shame for him. So I hope it doesn't 100%. Come to that, and I hope he can sort something out properly with the Tonali situation without it getting ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive thing about what they've done with him, isn't it? Really, when you look at it and break it down, it's it's a big.
Well, I think it's excessive. I think a 10-month ban from football is excessive. It was more than Ivan Toney, wasn't it? I think. I don't think Ivan Toney got a 10-month ban, and Paul Mason's tweeted about it again. Just saying, whilst he understands that there has to be some form of punishment, he thinks that it's too much, and players need help. He says all this will do was stop players from asking for help, because they don't want to be banned for that long, and they need somewhere to go and ask for help. And by doing what you've done to Tonali, with all the money as well, reportedly that he's going to miss out on, that he's signed, then players just won't speak out and won't ask for help, which is a valid point.
We're just trying to fix the line with him. It's a bit of an issue, but don't know what it is, fellas. Maybe Newcastle. Newcastle have lost internet connection. Who knows?
Mate, I had it about 10 minutes ago. I lost internet connection, mate. I don't know what's going on. I think one of the kids stopped pedalling. I think.
Clarky's not in a jacuzzi, is he?
Probably.
Tell him to get out the jacuzzi. His wires have got wet.
While he's smoking his big cigar and laying back in the jacuzzi and getting our lass to hold his computer and out of the water. Why do we have a chat with Ian Murdoch? Because Ian's up at 7 o'clock. Hopefully, Ian's not suffering from internet problems. With black, white and red all over. Ian, hiya.
No, hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Beautiful.
We can hear you, Ian. Hope you're all right, pal.
I'm fine, lads. Listen, when you get your timing all askew, yesterday I decided to set up an interview with a good friend of mine, Rob Stewart, used to be a journalist up here, and he's now working down the West Country. And I thought, let's get him to talk about Middlesbrough's trip to Exeter. Let's get him to talk about what Elliot Anderson was like when he had that loan spell at Bristol Rovers. I get him to talk about Joey Barton and the interview, which you can listen to later. Everything was fine, and we got some great stories. I was feeling very smug. An hour later, Joey Barton got sacked, didn't he? But anyway, we thought, well, the material's still so good. There was no point listening. So with apologies to yourselves and to our listeners, you might find a little bit of it dated, but there's some fantastic stuff there. And
it's
as
all
well
relevant,
as
it's all the same, Ian, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. That's spot on, Higgy. And also I've got on someone who makes your good selves and me not opinionated. It's Luke Edwards, the foghorn of the Tyne. He's another good friend of mine, good journalist, and he's coming on in the second half of my show to look forward to the 3 games this weekend.
We can hear a lot of rumbling in the background. That may sound like the birthday boy's back.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, happy birthday.
Cheers, lads.
We just had to rub it in, Lee.
Sounds like he's got out the jacuzzi now, hasn't
he? Yeah, the internet connection wasn't quite working to the Clark establishment and residence, so Higgy's come up with the idea, Ian, that he's sitting in a jacuzzi and the wires are wet.
Oh, well, he's got a jacuzzi, hasn't he?
How do you know?
He's got a few, I think.
Well, actually, I'll tell you what. I do know Darren's birthday, because I share a birthday with Darren, April the 28th. So
there you go.
Yes,
brilliant
that's
stuff.
correct, mate.
Anyway, enjoy the weekend, lads.
Cheers, Ian, and you,
Take
pal.
care.
Take care, pal.
Ian,
Cheers,
Mercer.
Ian.
Yep, Ian up at 7 o'clock after the news. With black, white and red all over. Fellas, Lee, we were talking about Dortmund and what potential impact they could have on Newcastle in their Premier League performances. Do you think anything? He's gone again.
He's gone back in the jacuzzi.
I don't think it'll have an impact.
Oh, there he is. He's back. Good lad.
I don't think...
We're really struggling.
He's messing with the wires. He's
I know.
messing with the wires, isn't
That's where it is. That's where it is.
His dog's chewed through the wires of the mic. That's what's happened.
Good job. We've only got 9 minutes left, fellas.
Yeah, it is. Clarky would have filled them.
So, right. It's interesting asking a former Sunderland legend and a former Boro legend to talk about Newcastle, but they're away to Wolves. How tricky is it, fellas?
Yeah. I mean, it can be a tricky one. Let's be honest. You know, it's not. It can be a very strange place to go, can't it, Wolves? Again, but a team hit and miss, really. You know, for me, I don't think they're as effective as they've been in previous seasons. But yeah, I mean, I don't know your thoughts, Higgy, but it can be a potential banana skin, really.
Yeah, I mean, Wolves are one of them teams, aren't they? Where on the day they're decent. And they can cause problems for teams, but what are they, 12th in the league now, 11 points from 9 games. I'd look at, Newcastle. Newcastle 16 points. So I can see Newcastle going up there and getting a result. I can, and Wolves are one of them teams. I think if Newcastle get the first goal, then I think they win the game. But it can be a tough place because Molineux is if they get the tails up and they start off well. Then they can be a handful, Wolves, because they've got some individuals who can turn games and who are decent. But like all Premier League teams have, all Premier League teams have a player who can do something. And Wolves are no different. They're well organised. But I just think Newcastle, I just think they're too strong for them. I do. I look at Newcastle and I just think they're strong all over. They've got a good way of playing. They're organised. And I just think they'll have too much for Wolves. I don't see Wolves. Maybe a draw, but if I was to edge one, I'd say Newcastle would edge you.
Yeah, I would definitely. I think the style they play, Newcastle, they play with a high intensity. I think that I don't think they fear anyone they come up against, to be quite honest. And I think sometimes that's a good way to play. I
mean, you have got some injuries, haven't you? I think Isak's out, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's struggling. I think he's done his hamstring in the Champions League. They've got 1 or 2 injuries. Callum Wilson, who's been in and out of the side, I think he'll probably play, will he, tomorrow? But I just think...
Yeah, I would think so.
But they spread goals out quite well, don't they? Newcastle. And I just think they'll have too much for them, if I'm honest. Pains me to say it, but... There you go.
Get the bubble bath and, have the tequila in your hand, mate. Go and enjoy the jacuzzi.
He's got a night out planned. He wanted the last 10 minutes off. That's what he wants.
Which one of you three were sitting in the car park, by the way?
I know.
No, yeah.
I know.
He's got the best Wi-Fi ever.
I'm going to do it more often.
Brilliant. I've got to ask you a question, fellas. Lionel Messi again is up for another Ballon d'Or. Now he's in America. He's scored 1 goal so far in his new US season. You've got people like Haaland, who obviously had a phenomenal season last season. What are your thoughts on Messi being included in that again?
Listen, when did he judge it from? Because they've got a weird year, haven't they?
I think they go back a chunk, don't they, into last year as well.
Yeah, so, listen, if you take the World Cup into account, and maybe that's the major thing of it, the World Cup, because it certainly can't be his form in America. Although, he has scored a couple of great goals. I think on his debut he scored that last minute free kick, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, mate. Yeah.
So
in the pink kit.
Yeah. So I think taking that out of it, the American stuff. You look at him. He had a great World Cup, didn't he? I was so pleased that he did win the World Cup because for me, him and Ronaldo have just lifted the bar massively on football and what players can do and what players are capable of. Messi shades it for me because I think he was a little bit more of a team player than Ronaldo was in his pomp. But both of them are just incredible footballers who, deserve everything that they've got. But it does seem strange, when you mentioned Haaland there, Dave, and what he did last year, that was incredible, and winning the Champions League obviously as well. So it does stink a little bit, but you could probably get away with it because of the World Cup. That would be my thing. And does he deserve it? Probably not. There's been better players, that's for sure, in the year. But for what he's achieved, and maybe do you think, the curtain's going to come down after this year on what has been an unbelievable career and one that we might not ever see again because the stats and what have you from them two players in particular have been just phenomenal. Just phenomenal.
Daz?
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree with what Higgy said there. It's coming towards the end, isn't it? It'd be obviously with on the back of the World Cup. It'd be a fantastic way for him to kind of finish off, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. With the Ballon d'Or, but
that'd be his 8th one, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's some achievement, that, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, he's achieved some fantastic things, but I think the World Cup was kind of like the icing on the cake, wasn't it, for him? And I think, I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be included. Obviously, the way they look at it over the course of the year or whatever they go back, he would definitely be in the voting for me.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's see. I mean, we're told he's a nail on certainty.
Apparently, he's got it, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Apparently, it's nailed on. Is
it a goodbye?
Been sold already.
Is it a thanks for your career?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that like myself and Daz have said, that the curtain's coming down in his career.
Yeah.
He's been such an unbelievable footballer, like unbelievable what he's done. And then he's completed football at the end of it. In one of his very last important games, he's completed football. He's won the World Cup. Everyone said about Messi, Messi's no good because he hasn't won a World Cup and blah, blah, blah. When you put him up against the greats, Maradona and people like that, Pele, that's always the thing. He hasn't won a World Cup. Well, he has now. And he's done some unbelievable things in his club career. And he's not just what he's won or achieved, but how he's played. And some of the unbelievable moments he's give you. And he went through a spell, by the way, where he was given unbelievable moments every single week. And it was just like, you think, is this fella real? A bit like Ronaldo did. Ronaldo made unbelievably important things happen week in, week out for a long time. But Messi has as well. And the both of them, I think the both of them drove each other on to be better and better.
Is this a bit of a precedent then? Are we going to see Ronaldo win it next year? Because he might be looking towards the end of his career.
If he wins a World Cup.
Yeah, if he wins a World Cup, he'll be in it. But I think what he's doing now over there is... I mean, he's still scoring goals and still playing well, isn't he, over there? So
yeah.
But he'd have to win a World Cup for him to be included in that.
So come on then, give us your predictions. Sunderland, Norwich, Higgy?
I fancy Sunderland. After seeing Norwich in the week, I think if Sunderland score first, they'll win the game.
Daz, Sunderland win?
Yeah, 2-0 to Sunderland. Hopefully we get a better referee, because that was definitely a penalty at Leicester.
Good
I
man.
forgot to mention that.
Good man. Wolves Newcastle.
That's a tricky one.
I think Newcastle have got too much for them for me. I'll go 2-1 Newcastle.
Okay.
I'll go 1-0 Newcastle.
And Higgy, Boro Stoke.
Boro are going to win. Boro are flying. I'm going to go 3-1.
Oh, wow. Daz?
Yeah.
I was going to go 2-0 Middlesbrough, to be quite honest. I think that they're on a high at the moment and they're doing really well.
8 on the trot they'll be. Fellas, we're out of time. We're done. In fact, we're late. So we managed to get through the technical difficulties of the North East breaking down with its internet.
You're not wrong.
I just hope he's had a good weekend.
I know he's going to go mad, isn't he? He's going to go absolutely berserk. Clarky, we love you. Fellas, go and have a good weekend.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Happy birthday, Clarky. See you later.
Yeah, happy birthday, Clarks.